Today's video is sponsored by Skillshare.
Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to another video. Before we get things started, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe because every other YouTuber says that helps, so yeah, just please do that. For today's video, we're going to be ranking every single film camera that I have ever used. I've tried to be very clear on this channel that if it's for technical photography or, more artistic things, that there's probably always going to be a better place for you to go when it comes to most things, but nobody has wasted more money on trying more film cameras than me, because I always think that if I buy this camera, it will help me make better photos. So I have tried a lot of cameras. Admittedly, I stole this idea from George Muncie, aka Negative Feedback, so I just wanted to pay a little bit of homage to him. Undoubtedly, I would have never gotten into shooting film photography, let alone making a channel, if it was not for George. So yeah, here's like a screenshot to his video, or I'll find a link and put it down below. I do want to say really quickly before this video gets started and before we start ranking the cameras, that this is specifically my personal opinion and how the cameras worked for me and my style of photography. I think these videos are best when people are just honest and transparent, and I'm a little bit of a sarcastic person, so if I say something that offends you or it's your favorite camera, please realize that this is simply a YouTube video and was my experience with the camera, and just because I may say the camera is not great does not mean it is not great. This is just my specific experiences to the cameras and how I'm ranking them. Lastly, before we get started, I have to let you know the tier ranking system that I have made. At the top I have gas, because in George's video he called it God tier, which I probably would have called as well because that is the best option, but I didn't want to completely rip off his video, so I called it gas. If you are a boomer and you do not know what gas means, it just means very, very good. Next we have great, then we have good, then we have okay, and then we have dumpster fire. So let's begin, shall we?
First, here we have the infamous Canon AE1, which was my very first film camera ever. Good camera, certainly not a dumpster fire. I probably would have to put the Canon AE1. My heart said it was at this point in the video when my camera unexpectedly turned off, and I did not realize it until I got done filming the video 40 minutes later. It was obviously the best of my intentions and my desire to give you guys a video where I sarcastically ranked all of the film cameras I had ever used with a little cool screen recording of my face in the corner. However, there is no way I could record all of that again, so I'm sure Nathan will do the best he can to put little graphics and funny things on the screen along the way as I rank these film cameras. But last week I didn't even plug my mic in. You may have seen that on Instagram story that I posted, so you guys aren't used to technical proficiency and high video quality here. So yeah, enjoy the rest of the video.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
My heart says to put it in good, because there are a lot of good things about it, but the rewind lever has broken on like 3 different versions of these for me. Therefore, I must put it at okay. An overall solid camera. I don't think you can complain for the price that you generally pay for this. An okay camera. But a great camera to start out with if you're just getting into film. Would highly suggest Canon AE1. Next, we have a little bit nicer version of the Canon AE1, the Canon A1, which not much to speak on. Traditional SLR style camera. You can probably get it for slightly more than a Canon AE1, but the build quality is certainly higher. I've never had anything break on the Canon A1, so I would put the Canon A1 as good. Next up, we have the Olympus Xa. I don't have much experience using the Olympus Xa. I think there's 4 versions of this camera. The first thing that comes to mind is it is certainly, when people say that they can just put a camera in their pocket, all of these cameras technically could probably fit in your pocket, but when it comes to pocketability, it probably doesn't get any better than the Olympus Xa series. Also made of plastic, feels great in the hand. I love the clamshell design. I'm gonna give the Olympus Xa, although it is admittedly probably one of the cameras I have the least experience with. I think it would be hard to not give the Xa at least good. Next up, we have the Olympus Stylus. The Olympus Stylus, or the MJU1. I've never used the Stylus Epic somehow, which is quite a shame. The Stylus is definitely at least good, in my opinion. We're gonna come back to that. This is already stressing me out a lot. Next, I'm skipping the Yashica T4 as well because I'm not ready to commit to these. Contax G2. So the Contax G2 is an electric camera. That's a con for most people. It also apparently misses autofocus quite often, which I experienced a little bit, but most times I do believe it was my fault. Definitely Contax G2 is not gas, even though all fashion photographers would have you think it is. It certainly has its flaws. But its pros are that, my God, you can just run through the film with it. I mean, you're definitely not going to miss a moment with it. The autofocus, it feels like a digital camera shooting film more so than any other camera. Just the ease and the quickness. You can hit them with the quickness with the G2. And lastly, the lenses are arguably the sharpest 35mm lenses I've ever shot, and that includes Leica Summicron glass. I've never shot Summilux, but you can't convince me it's any different. Leica heads go crazy in the comments. It's good or great? I don't know if I can give it great. We're gonna have to come back to it. The Contax T2, T3. I'm not ready to do these either. This is going downhill quickly. The Nikon F3. I'll say this. I'm gonna do the Nikon F3. Right next to the Nikon F3, we have the Leica M6 right here and the Leica Mp, two cameras I've used. So similarly to how I said the floor of the Olympus Xa, or no, let's say the floor of the Contax G2 is good, meaning it couldn't go any lower than that. That's just where it starts. The Nikon F3's floor, in my opinion, is great. Is it gas? I'm just going to be honest, guys. I know some people could go nuts in the comments, so let's keep it civil down there. It would be very tough for Corey to put a 35mm camera in gas because I just don't have that kind of relationship with 35mm. But to put some respect on the F3's name, I will say some people would automatically put a Leica M6 or MP above the F3, and I would dare not do that. I do believe that the Nikon F3, for its place in journalism, like journalistic photography, and just the history of film photography, which I'm sure many of you know more than I do, but I've done a lot of research on the history of traditional SLRs, and I've done a lot of research on kind of the SLR arms race that was going on in the 70s and the 80s, and the F3, you know, it was huge. It's a really big deal. It's a modular system. Just what it means, I can't give it gas, but it is great. It is a great camera. And if there was a 35mm camera that I would give, I don't know, Leica M6 I have owned. I'd say the floor of the M6 is also great, but I cannot give it gas. And one reason I cannot give it gas is because so many people own them, and that's a big deal to me. I like to have things that people don't own, but then at the same time, it's a legendary camera. It's an iconic camera, obviously, but it is a great camera. Quite expensive though, which obviously, if you had a Leica system like this that for all of us we could afford, I'm not sure. Once again, this is just personal opinion. But then the Leica Mp, I had such a different experience with it than the Leica M6, which makes no sense because they're virtually the same camera. I just decided to pay an extra $2,000 US for the body that did virtually nothing different. The build quality felt slightly builder, and I liked the rewind knob better, but then I'm over here thinking, like, was the MP gas? Let's keep going. We clearly need I wanted to make a legendary section or an iconic section because, like, the Nikon F3, even though if I cannot put it top tier, it clearly is iconic. Same with the M6. And, you know, for the style of photography that I do, travel photography, the Leica is gas for travel photography for 35mm, no doubt about it. Fuji Ga645. Owned this camera for a short time. If you would have spoken to me directly after I sold it, I would have said it was good. But I think the Fuji Ga645 is actually a great camera. It's rare, it's one of a kind, medium format point and shoot. the quality that comes out of it for the fixed lens, a Fujinon lens that you don't hear much about compared to Leica glass and Carl Zeiss glass. Fuji Ga645 is a great camera. Hasselblad, I want to say good from the experience that I had with it, but it is obviously, the fact that it was shot on the moon is alone to make it a great camera. Once again, I know for many people it would be the top tier, but for my experience with it, I loved it, don't get me wrong. And please like no, grade is high. Can't just be handing out that gas title, just everything. Mamiya C330, good camera. I wouldn't say that I've ever absolutely been blown away by anything I shot out of it, but it's so reliable. It's such a great starter camera for medium format. It's affordable. I definitely wouldn't say it's just okay. It's a good camera. Contax 645. Sorry. I just don't love this camera. I do not love the Contax 645. If you're a wedding photographer, if you're a wedding photographer, or maybe you're shooting like more commercial stuff, I understand the Carl Zeiss, the 80mm glass is very special. And it's very similar to the G2 in the sense that it's very easy to run through film like crazy. I understand the appeal for a certain photographer for sure, but that price is just ridiculous. Even if I was a wedding photographer, I would rather have the Mamiya C330 autofocus version, which has an 80mm lens as well. And while it may not be as sharp as the Carl Zeiss, I could buy 4 Mamiya C330 autofocuses for one Contax 645. That is so disrespectful, but I don't care. That's where it belongs. I just recently shot the Mamiya C330 as well. I borrowed it for a video and shot it. Yeah, this camera is okay. I don't want to freak anybody out. I'll use 6x6 TLR heads and put it in dumpster fire, but it was fun to try a TLR, but I'm not a TLR guy. It's okay. Let's go ahead and get this out of the way. This camera's a dumpster fire. I hate the Holga. I do not like that camera. I know. It costs like $10. It's not meant to get good images, but okay. I know. It's not supposed to be good photos. Psych. Dumpster fire. I don't care. Don't even give those cameras to your kids. A 5-year-old should at least be shooting on a Kodak disposable or something. Okay, disposables. I really don't like this camera. And all of you guys are going to be like, oh wait, it's a disposable camera. It's not supposed to take good photos. I know that. I know. But I just really do not like that camera. The best thing about this camera is the design of the front, the Kodak red and blue. I'm going to put it okay. Ilford HP5 point and shoots or other Ilford point and shoots, I've enjoyed much better than Kodak disposable cameras. They have better build quality. It's not supposed to have good build quality. It costs $20. I know. Save it, Randy. And if I'm shooting memories personally, I'd rather them be on black and white. So Ilford disposable is definitely better. Mamiya 7.2. Mamiya 7.2 is great. The floor of the Mamiya 7.2 is great. It is not gas because of the price right now. There is virtually zero difference between a Mamiya 7.2 and a Mamiya 7 original. The only difference is that you have some double exposure features on the Mamiya 7.2. So if you want to pay an extra $2,000 to waste a 6x7 frame on double exposure, go off king or queen. That was a little bit harsh, I'm sorry, but it's a lot of extra money for very few features. It is a much newer camera, possibly if you're buying it. They discontinued them much later than the Mamiya 7, the original, so it is a newer camera, which means it technically should last longer. But my goodness, they have gotten quite expensive. Need I say more? Mamiya 7 original is gas, no question about it. Mamiya 7, Mamiya 7 II is my all-time favorite camera system in film. I don't think that will ever be trumped. For what I do for travel photography, I do like to take portraits occasionally, but environmental portraits, which it checks the box there, this camera does everything. I can carry it up a 10-mile hike. I can walk around town with it. The glass is absurdly sharp, maybe too sharp. There is no better camera system for me than the Mamiya 7. I just have to knock the 2 because it's quite inexpensive. I get people asking me all the time, should I purchase a 7 II or a 7 original? I often tell them that if you can afford the 7 II, get the 7 II. But if you can find a 7 that looks like it has not been beat to heck and back, then get that. The first Mamiya 7 I ever bought was for $1,800 USD with a 65mm lens. It literally looked like it had been to war and back, but it worked perfectly fine for years and years. And so I could not give the Mamiya 7 gas. I mean, camera is gas, not much else to say. What are we on now? It's getting stressful. Mamiya oh, I think I just lost. I keep scrolling down here. It's making me really nervous. Mamiya RB67. Not much experience with this, so maybe not qualified to talk about it once again, but I have used the RZ67 a lot, and I've used the RB enough to know. So the RB, completely mechanical, which is a big plus, even though it is like weightlifting practically. The floor of the RB is definitely good. It's not an okay camera. I would say the RB starts at good, but I don't know if I could give it great. The RB is a good camera. Almost a great camera. Even with the older glass, I've never noticed a difference of quality that goes back to people who are, I don't know what those nerds call it, pixel pinching or something. I don't know. If you do that stuff, you're a nerd and you're wrong. You can't tell the difference. Just kidding. But yeah, the image quality is the same, as the RZ in my opinion. If the RZ is better on those newer lenses, I don't think you could really tell. So it's a heavier camera. It's older, so you might run into some more repair issues. Fully mechanical, which I know is a big deal to a lot of us. Being a fully mechanical camera did not matter to me when I first started shooting film, but after you've had a few electric cameras die out on you and you've used a Nikon F3 or a camera like that you're just relying on good mechanics 50 years after the fact, it's a big deal. Once again, this is personal, so I'm gonna leave it in good because it doesn't really work for my style. Keep in mind the RB could easily be a great camera. Definitely not gas. Let's not get carried away, folks. But it's a good camera. RZ67 gas. I don't even care. You just said the RB though is good. It should at least be great. You're just putting the RZ in gas because it's more popular and it's new, and I don't make the rules around here. The RZ's gas. There's no way around it. The RZ67 is the greatest camera user experience I've ever had, bar none. Okay, probably the most controversial pick, the Pentax 6.7, man. This is the mirror lockup edition. I hate this camera. I really, really hate this camera. I had a terrible experience with this camera. I know that the Pentax 6.7 is a legendary system when it comes to medium format portraits or portraiture photography. When it comes to film, there is basically two lanes or two schools of thought, and that is generally going to be the Pentax 6.7 system, any variation, or the Mamiya RZ67 system. You can throw the RB in there, but just saying, you know, it's the RZ67 with the 110, or the Pentax 6.7 with the 105 with the 2.4 aperture respectively for the Pentax 6.7 105 and 2.8 for the RZ67 110, which is just absurd that you get that depth of field. I'll just let me run you through, guys, why I said that. So I own the 6.7 II, and it was one of my most favorite cameras. My mother, who's a teacher, would be so upset if she was ever to waste so much of her time to get this far into one of my videos. I had an absolutely unbelievable experience with the Pentax 6.7 II. I owned it for about 6 months to maybe 9 months. Maybe it was, yeah, probably about 9 months a couple years ago. And the 6.7 II was truly a god tier experience. I loved my 6.7 II. One of the few cameras I could move on from cameras very quickly, excluding my Mamiya 7 systems. I can move on from cameras quite quickly, especially because I like to make videos for you guys on YouTube, and I just like to try new things. But I was really just, dude, I was down bad when I got rid of my 6.7 II. So I recently purchased a 6.7, and I could not afford a 6.7 II, so I bought the most literal premium pristine next version. There's the 6x7 6x7. That's the original. Then you have the 6.7, the second version. Then you have the 6.7 II. So I thought I can't afford the 6.7 II, so I'm gonna buy the second version, the 6.7 MLU, with the wooden handle, and I got the latest version of the 105. So literally the only thing that was different about it from my 6.7 II, which was the design of the camera, you know, the ergonomics, which are terrible compared to the 6.7 II. I mean, I know that it's so much more money, but I mean, simply adding that little grip that's built into the camera right here on the 6.7 II, it's really actually hard to praise Pentax because it's such a game changer that you really just get angry that they didn't do it in the first place. So it's kind of hard to be like, to celebrate that, because I just want to be like, why did you guys not just do this earlier? It was so obvious. So I said all that to say I hate the wooden grip on the 6.7. The reload on the Pentax 6.7, I know I am not the smartest person in the world, but I had an incredibly difficult time with the reload, to which I did not even complain about, because I try not to complain on my Instagram stories about camera gear, because I know I'm privileged to get to try all these cameras. So I was having trouble with it one day and said something, and then I had like 70 billion people come into my DMs and were like, oh yeah, this camera really is not good for like loading. Or that sounded stupid, but a lot of people were saying, you know, it's somewhat finicky when it comes to the little tabs on the bottom. This camera, the images were good though. So the end result of this were still good, but the experience was enough to knock it down. Obviously, the end result of Pentax 6.7 systems, older ones, are going to be great. But the user experience that I had with this, and once again, I'm sure that if you use this system a ton, you would get used to it, but it was not a friendly system to pick up for medium format. Which leads us to the one that got away from me. I cannot in good conscience give the Pentax 6.7 II, I cannot call her gas and sleep well tonight, but she is undoubtedly great. Because she has great results like the Pentax 6.7, the mirror lockup, but the user experience, the ergonomics, the light meter. I also thought the light meter was way better on the Pentax 6.7 too. Also, some person in the comments is going to lose it, but it also just looks more appealing to the eye. It's not about how the camera looks. Okay, we all care. Let's be real. Don't act like we don't care. I'm being honest in saying that I could not afford the 6.7 II my last go around, but if you have the extra money, you would buy the one that looks better. And it's much newer as well, which is always nice if you can afford it. Polaroid SX70. The only Polaroid camera that I have a lot of experience with, it's so fun, it's so unique. People always stop and want to talk about it. The image quality is amazing. You can focus the camera. This camera rules. I can't give it great though. If this was a Polaroid tier, it would be gas. It would, I mean, this is the gassiest of Polaroids, fam, no doubt. The Olympus Stylus, oh man. Taking all things into account, being the image quality, the price, it is a true point and shoot too. These Contax, I do not consider Contax T2 and T3 true point and shoots because they have settings. Obviously they're point and shoots. You guys know what maybe you don't know what I mean. I would consider a true and pure point and shoot one that for example, I travel with my wife Kelly a lot, and so I would consider, in the purest sense of the word, a point and shoot something that I could quite literally hand to her and she can hit the shutter button and it does everything. With the Contax T2 and T3, there comes some instruction. I'm not going to knock them because of that, but I am taking into account the simplicity of the Olympus Stylus or the Mu1. I'm going to put it in good, but my heart says great. And I have a lot of friends that I trust that would put the Mu2 or the Stylus Epic like God tier. We've got to move on. This is too painful. I'm so sorry that I have to disrespect you like that, Stylus. Yashica T4, I've had a lot of time to think about too. This is a great camera. I know that there's some weirdos that use this camera in the fashion photography industry. I won't say names, but there's also some high art, I don't know how to say that. There's also a lot of photographers that are very well known in the world that shot a lot of their early work on these, like in the 90s, that I adore. So, and also I would consider it a true point and shoot once again. The T4, for example, I could hand to somebody if we're traveling and they could use it just as a stylus, no settings, very simple to turn the flash on and off, and it has Carl's Eyes glass, 3.5, aperture of 3.5, which is amazing. Okay, I've had time to sort this out in my heart too. I want to put this in gas, and I think I am not going to put it there because the price tag for the MP is just absurd. Obviously, if you have the money, obviously if you're a Leica head, obviously if 35mm is your primary focus, the Leica Mp is the cream of the crop, the belle of the ball. Every time I ever took it out, it is undoubtedly gas, but that price tag, man. Sheesh. Guys, just for reference, just to have the body alone of the Leica Mp, which means I could not take a single picture because I do not have a lens, I could buy a Pentax 672 with the lens, a Fuji Ga645, a Nikon F3, and a Yashica T4. $300, $2,500, $800, $300 to $500. I mean, that is just a lot of cheddar to give up. But hey, baby, if you got it, spend it, go off. I'm just saying that for me, I'm not a wealthy enough person to, whenever I was out shooting with it, I always thought about how expensive it was. And that really bothered me. The Contax T3. And then the Contax T2. I'm just kidding. The Contax T3, people who really know me know that I know these two systems, I would say, about as good as anyone. A lot of you guys could crush me in knowledge, but because I'm a sucker for hype and because I like the Contax brand, I just think it's so sick. Like, I love the old Japanese design and I love paying for overpriced items because I'm an idiot. I've owned the T3, I think 3 times, a black one and 2 of the champagnes, and I've owned a Contax T2. Let's not talk about it. The differences in the camera is the price, obviously, the focal length of the lens. You have a 38mm over here, a 35 over here. The elements, there's more like lens. I think there's one more lens element in the T3 if I'm not mistaken. I would say the T3 glass is slightly better than the T2, and I do think you can tell. I know I've already ripped on pixel pinching when it came to the RB versus the RZ glass, or like the Carl Zeiss Contax glass for the G mount versus the Leica glass, and you can't usually tell. But that T3 lens, that thing is smoking. But I could never, and the T3 clearly has better design. It looks way prettier. It looks like a futuristic thing. So it has better design and from the eye appeal, but we can't let that weigh too much. We can admit that we like the way things look, but we can't let that be like a serious factor when it comes down to it. Has a little LCD screen on the top. And these two guys, when it comes to like electrical cameras burning out, I mean, these are the cream of the crop. Like when we start to worry about fully electrical cameras biting the dust and screwing us and robbing us of our money, we shall fear none more than we fear the Contax G2. I fear the T series burning out more than the Gs too. The things I don't like about the T3 is I don't like the way it feels in my hand. Granted, I'm 6'6", so I'm somewhat of a large human being, so my hands may be a little bit bigger than average, but this camera literally feels like an infant in my hands, and that bothers me. I don't like the way it feels in my hands. I've always been very clear about that, and it is quite expensive. The T3 the floor of it is great, but I do not love the user experience of it. The results are great. The results are gas for the 35mm point and shoot. I do think you can tell a little bit of a difference between image quality between the Yashica T4 and a Contax T2 versus a Contax T3. The image quality is undoubtedly gas. You are smoking that gas with the T3, but the user experience, I was always worried that it was going to break. It always felt too small. It always felt too pretty, like I could not bang it around, which is another reason that I love my Leica M6 as opposed to my MP, because it was the same deal. I just felt like I could move it around more. And if you know me, baby, don't hate the player, hate the game. Contax T2 is incredibly overhyped. It probably is overpriced, but at the end of the day, it means a lot to me how a camera feels in the hand, and there is no camera that I love holding more than the Contax T2. It feels sturdy. The image quality is unbelievable for a point and shoot. And yeah, what a trendy little hype beast tier of gas we have at the top. So yeah, there's my video. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video as I ranked every single film camera that I've owned or used. Yeah, obviously I was just being like kind of silly in some of it, but a lot of those cameras, although I may have ranked them lower, are great cameras. Probably every camera on that entire list is a good or great camera, except the Holga. That camera is a dumpster fire. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it was something a little bit new, and was honestly like a great idea from George when he did this and then ranked the film. So let me know if you guys enjoyed the video, if you somehow made it this far. I really appreciate you guys stopping by, and yeah, follow me on Instagram somewhere around here. Nathan will put the screenshot, and we'll see you guys again soon for another video. Skillshare is an online learning community for curious and creative people just like you and me. On Skillshare, you can learn about literally anything that you would ever want to learn about. From music to photography, business, painting, trust me, Skillshare has a class for you. When I first started taking photos, one of my biggest inspirations was a photographer named Chris Burkhardt. Luckily for people who are into photography like me, Chris has a class on Skillshare called Outdoor Photography, Shooting at Sunset, Sunrise, and Night. I've come a long way as a photographer, but that doesn't mean that I'm not always looking to up my game. Seeing how Chris approaches these landscapes is just one example of how Skillshare has helped me out. The best thing about Skillshare is that there are no ads, and they are constantly launching new classes to help you stay focused on learning. Right now, the first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description below will get 30% off an annual premium membership so you can begin to explore creativity on Skillshare today.